Getting out there and actually attempting to stop a player in game situations, even in practice, isn't enough if you haven't mastered the techniques of stopping players. So let's work on some techniques that you can do to actually improve your ability to shut a penetrator down. The first is, Kyle, and we'll have you take this, we'll have you toss it to me like you're in a closeout position. And of course, being able to close out with short, choppy steps are critical to stopping a penetrator. But once you close out with a hand up, so you're taking away the shot, you're slowing yourself down by using those short, choppy steps in order to stop penetration, then you're gonna force me one way or the other. If I was on the wing, you might force me to the baseline. If I was up top, you might force me into a help side defender. But you're gonna force me one direction or the other. So let's have you go ahead and take that closeout right now. Short, choppy steps with a hand in the air. Now he's got one high leg and one low leg. In order to be able to stop a penetrator, there's 3 specific techniques that he has to become proficient at. He's got to develop the muscle strength and muscle memory to do all 3 of these movements. But these are 3 movements that very few coaches teach. So coaches, if you want to help your players become defensive stoppers, you need to teach these to your players. And players, if you want to become a defensive stopper, you've got to be able to do these 3 movements. The first is being ready to anticipate a penetration to the right. You've got to be able to funnel a player towards the corner, away from the basket. So that means as soon as you close out, you've got to be able to take that first step and not give up the penetration to the lane, but you've got to be able to close it off. So you're going to close out, and then you've got to be able to slide. If you can stop a player and slide twice and stop them from getting into the lane, chances are they'll either pick up the ball or they'll use a pullback dribble and create space. So let's go ahead and take a look at this off the closeout. So he closes out and slide, and he beats me to that stop, to that place, and chests the ball. Now let's take a look at it if he was practicing it on his own, because you may be working out on your own doing this, and if you're working on your own, you've got to be able to imagine that there's an offensive player that you're closing out on. Coaches, if you're doing this in a practice, you could just do it as a 2-player drill, and you could use multiple baskets, or you could put players on either wings and get the same result. Here we go. By yourself, close out and slide. There you go. Go back to the starting spot again, get another rep. Close out and slide. So those are your closeouts with slides. The next is to be able to close out and then use a pivot and still be able to shut down a player. So let's take a look at this. He closes out, but now the penetrator attacks the high leg. He's got to be able to use an open pivot, but what most players have a habit of doing, specifically because they haven't developed the muscle memory, so they don't have anything to fall back on, is most players open too far. So the moment the penetration happens, they open up, and now they've given the entire lane. You don't want to open the door to an offensive player. So the muscle memory that you want to develop is turning and doing a partial pivot and then continuing to slide so that a defender can't turn the corner and get to the rim. So let's take a look at that by yourself. So you're going to close out, open pivot, slide. Let's take it again. Close out. Open pivot, slide. Let's take it one time now with me being the attacker. Slide. Let's take it one more time. Slide. And he beats me to that spot. And the third is if a penetrator attempts to attack, but then direction changes. Because what every good offensive player does and what every good playmaker does is when they get chested, when their penetration lane or angle gets closed off, instead of picking up the ball or just making a pass, they redirect. They direction change. And so what you'll see is a lot of players on the closeout, they may be good enough to stop a player on the first attack, but the moment they get chested, they direction change, and then the player opens the door and they give up the re-attack. If you want to be a great defensive player, you've got to be able to not just chest a player once, you've got to be able to chest their redirection and re-attack as well. So what we're going to work on is now you're going to close out, Kyle. You're going to get your 2 slides, and then you're going to do an open pivot, but don't open the door. So it's an open pivot and slide back twice as well. So what you're practicing and what you're developing the strength in your legs to do is to actually chest. So you're stopping penetration and you're stopping the re-attack. So let's take a look at 2 of those. That's the one. Let's take one more. Terrific. Now what you won't see is you won't see the average player getting to the gym and working on stopping penetration. But if you want to be a great defensive player, you're going to want to do some technique training and develop that muscle memory so that when it comes time for games and you need to shut down a quicker, faster player, you've got the muscle memory to be able to do it.